What's good, my friends? Merry Christmas, happy holidays to all, and we are the most interactive sports talk show in the upstate. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. You know, today and tomorrow are challenges as professionals, right? They're challenges because, you remember grade school, like this time of year, how much were you really paying attention? Like in ninth grade, when you're like a couple days before vacation. I was most recently a high school teacher. Like the week before Christmas, like it is pulling teeth to get squat done. The kids don't care that they don't have their homework ready to go. They don't care. And it is a challenge. You realize it. But look, man, we rise to the challenge here on Offsides. All right. We know that Mama and Papa Ryan are coming to town on Wednesday of this week. We know. But and they're going to be bringing all sorts of goodies. And we can't wait to see them. And we're super excited about it. But I'm here to tell you what, man, we're going to deliver a couple great shows for you between now and then. Literal reminder, our upset pick challenge, the final pick will be made tomorrow. You can also send them in Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, but they've got to be sent in between the hours of 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. Tomorrow, your upset pick will be open as of 4 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon, and you will be able to pick the games. Oh, gosh, Diesel, I'm watching this bowl game. Look at this. That's a high school stadium, right? And there's at least 10 people there. There's at least 10 people there. It's incredible.
That's Charlotte. That's the Charlotte 49ers home stadium. Can we stop with hosting bowl games in a school's stadium?
Yeah.
Like it just reeks of desperation. It reeks of a town not being prepared and ready to, they host the Myrtle Beach Bowl on campus of Coastal Carolina. They host the Avocados from Mexico Cure Bowl at UCF's stadium. And now they're hosting whatever bowl game this is at Charlotte's stadium.
It's the famous Toastery Bowl, Diesel.
What is a Toastery?
I have no idea what. Oh, I know. Chris Phillips told me today. He said it's an actual breakfast place in Charlotte.
Oh,
that is delicious.
So one-off restaurant. What did they have to put down to sponsor a bowl? Like $350?
Evidently not much.
Sheesh.
As in $350.
I think there should be a rolling average requirement for attendance to hang on to your bowl game. If you're not putting minimum 20,000 into your bowl game, you shouldn't be able to host a bowl game. Right?
I think 10 out of 10 upstaters I would agree with that. I think 10 out of 10 upstaters would agree that Offsides today is much more of a listen watch than is the famous Toastery Bowl. Do we not agree? I think we do agree, even though Old Dominion leads Western Kentucky 21-0 at the present moment. Diesel, let's go ahead and reveal it to our audience right now. Okay? This is not something we like. You guys get more than what we give on social media. Okay? You guys get more. Last year, Diesel and I set a record for downloads in Odyssey Greenville, the sports station. Now, you might remember this station used to have a different name about a year and a half ago, but the entire 6+ years that this station has been in existence, Diesel and I set the downloads record for this station in its 6 years of existence last year, which was a tick under 60,000 downloads. Just for kicks and giggles or bleeps and giggles, Diesel and I said to ourselves, well, what would be a realistic goal for this year? 75,000, right? Like that'd be great. That'd be awesome. That would be us breaking our own record by about 20%, right? But we don't do modest or meager up in here. Diesel and I said, well, what's a number that would be just outlandish? And so we said 6 figures. We said 100,000 downloads. And my friends, Diesel let me know before the show began today. We have 2 shows left. We can receive downloads in perpetuity up through the end of the month. We are at 99,066 downloads. So we have 934 downloads left to go. And if we get to that number, the party is on, my friends. The party is on. We already had the downloads record here at Odyssey Greenville for the sports station. Okay. We set an insane goal this year. We are less than 1,000 downloads away from hitting that goal. Diesel, how have we done it? I got to be honest with you, man. Diesel strategizes all of these different things. He'll say, Mark, can you retweet this? I think it'll help us. Can you put this up? Can we do this video? Diesel kind of mans the controls on the strategy, right? And then every once in a while, I'll have an idea and I'll say, man, I think this would hit well. Or I'll say, like, I think if we use this tease, it'll work well. How have we arrived where we have, Diesel, and how do we get over the hump to 1,000 more?
Oh, it's very simple. It starts with having the most compelling content in the upstate.
Yeah.
With having the most compelling content on the station. It starts with making content out of things that our audience actually wants to talk about, not what you and I want to talk about. Because if that was the case, this would be a Florida and App State show. It's not. We talk a little bit Florida and a little bit App State, but we know what the audience here in the upstate really, really, truly wants. And we know how they talk to each other because we listen to you guys call in and text in every single day, constantly needling each other. Every chance you get, you Gamecock and Tiger fans who are flip sides of the same coin. So we use that strategy to post great content, to choose great content, to post great content, and then to tease the content in just the right way that gives you a good idea of what we're talking about, but not the punchline. Yeah. We give you the setup, but not the punchline. We force you to listen to hear the entirety of what we have to say.
You will listen, no, and then we incentivize you. We incentivize you to tune in with the tease, right? Like, I've got to hear what these guys have to say, and I got to tell you this, Diesel. I want to give a huge thank you to all of our listeners in the Carolinas for helping us set another downloads record, right? But a special thank you, and this is the part where Clemson fans are going to get a quirky little smile on their face. A special thank you to the market that's downloaded us the most for the second year in a row. Columbia, all our love. All our love to you, Columbia. Diesel sent me a screenshot of our top 10 markets.
And that was a few days ago.
Over the weekend. And for the second year in a row, Columbia is number one. If you guys had to guess, what are our top 5 markets? Okay, like what cities listen to Offsides the most? Okay, your top 5. If you had to guess, what would they be? You already know that Columbia downloads us more than anybody else does, which, Diesel, is kind of insane, right? Like, what they like to say whenever I say something about the Gamecocks or tweet something about the Gamecocks is they like to say rent-free or you're obsessed with us. Diesel, do the numbers say that we're obsessed with the Gamecocks, or do the numbers say that the Gamecocks are obsessed with us?
I would say that it's what's known as a symbiotic relationship. We talk about you, you listen to us, Bob's your uncle, number 1 city for downloads.
And it reinforces the Howard Stern principle that the haters listen more and for longer than those people who are fans of your work, fans of your show. The scene in Howard Stern Private Parts. How long do the people who like him listen? 20 minutes. How about the people who hate him? An hour and a half. Most common reason, they want to see what he's going to say next, what they're going to say next. That's who we are. That's what we do. Columbia. Guys, listen, It's not about like or dislike. It's just about producing compelling content. And we want to thank the Gamecocks for giving and Gamecock fans for making Columbia our most downloaded market for Offsides for the second year in a row. This, my friends, is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I mean, we host in the upstate. Columbia is more in the center of the state. Hour and 40 minutes away without traffic. 2 hours away with traffic. And here we are, second year in a row, most downloads in any market, Columbia, South Carolina. There's something special about this, isn't there? Because these people, they like to think that they like you to think, Diesel, that they're watching you incognito. You know, these Gamecock fans, they respond to my content on Twitter, and then you click on their profile, none of them are following you. So they're just like, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? They're voyeur. They're just spying my account, and they're not following. They don't want to do anything positive for us, right? So they just want to follow and do their own. They just want to follow along and kind of spy your account.
I want to listen to the content, but I don't want to give you a follow.
That's right.
That's the answer.
That's right.
That's the strategy on their part.
That's right. And for whatever reason, you know, they continue to show up in droves, and it is awesome to see, man.
Columbia
awesome to see.
Loves us. Shout out to the people of Charleston who are listening to the show. Charleston is our number 3 market.
Wait. We're telling them that in 5 minutes.
Oh,
okay. We're telling.
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
We're telling them what they are.
I'm sorry.
What the markets are in a few.
I got excited. You know, JoJo
case,
the Indian Circus Boy with my pretty new pet.
We're excited to have you guys here and excited to be doing what we're doing, and we appreciate you so very much. Texter says, if poking the Columbia Bear gets you ratings, the least you can do is admit you intentionally poke the bear. Texter, what we intentionally do is provide compelling content. That's the only thing. That's the only MO that we have. We give our honest opinions. Gamecock fans have come to know that a lot of the opinions we have about their football program tend not to be positive, right? I mean, we'll always shoot straight with you, but it just so happens that, you know, so much that has gone on with that program is not positive. And we're going to shoot straight with you. And then we see the numbers. And all we've got to say is, whether you like us or not, whether you think we're poking the bear or not, we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you downloading the content.
Dexter, what do you think content creation is? Do you think content creators create stuff and then just put it out on the internet and hope that people come along and find it? Do you think that's what the people who are good at creating content do? You know, you throw it out there. I hope somebody likes it. I hope they come along and find it. No, you have to go right at them. People are busy these days. Everybody's got a million and one things going on in their lives. So you got to go right at people. And we're not afraid to do that.
That's right. So what are the top 5 markets for downloads for Offsides in the year 2023? Here you go. Well, let's do 10. Number 10, Aiken, South Carolina. Number 9, Rock Hill, South Carolina. Number 8, Florence, South Carolina. Number 7, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Number 6, Charlotte, North Carolina. Number 5, Spartanburg, South Carolina. Number 4, Anderson, South Carolina. Number 3, Charleston, South Carolina. Number 2, Greenville, South Carolina. And number 1, Columbia, South Carolina. Second year in a row, Columbia has been 1, Greenville has been 2. I cannot thank you enough, Gamecock fans. It should, you know, guys, it's the same principle. Like, why does the local news lead with bad news? It's what you watch, right? You can't stop watching it. Well, how come Columbia's number 1 on the Offsides download list? Because a lot of times it's bad news, and you can't stop watching it. And it's not just Clemson fans wanting to listen to bad South Carolina news. It's the folks in Columbia. Like, our devices track where these people are listening, you know? And I got to tell you this. You know, if I am in management in Odyssey and I'm looking at this, you know what I'm saying, Diesel? Wow. These guys have the Carolinas cornered. These guys have the entire state cornered. Look at the geography of where these downloads are coming from. Myrtle Beach, Rock Hill, Aiken, Charleston, Columbia, Greenville.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, we owe you guys. And when I say you guys, I'm talking to the whole state. I'm talking to North Carolina as well. There's a reason my Twitter bio says the Carolinas, because that's who's listening to the show.
Not only do we own the state of South Carolina, we've got pretty substantial enclaves into North Carolina, a state that is supposed to be true blue.
That's right.
Carolina blue, NC State red, Wake Forest gold. No, we've got just a shade under 50% of what we have in Greenville coming out of Charlotte.
It's great. It's great. Love to see it, guys. 2024 is going to be our biggest year yet. All right, up next year, we will have a 12-team CFP. So who is going to be in it? That, my friends, is next, and this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Jim Szoke, Carolina Panthers analyst, joins us next here on the show after a win. After a what? A win?
Well, let's be real. They won that game, but it was about the fuggliest win you could possibly hope for.
By the way, Diesel, tickets as low as $4.
Woo!
Yesterday for that game.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we're gonna get to the point where it's bring a canned good, and you get in the stadium.
You know, Dave Tepper seems petty enough that I bet you he looked into how do we stop these numbers from being publicized, the amount that it costs to get in.
I think I led the show yesterday with Dave Tepper is going to be sitting inside of his climate-controlled booth, eating crab legs and shrimp cocktails, looking at all the unwashed plebes outside getting soaking wet, saying, "Oh, you poors. How dare more of you did not show up."
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, guys, next year, all right, next year, we are going to have a 12-team college football playoff, all right, a 12-team college football playoff. Now, I believe what's going to happen, it used to be the thought process was it would be the top 6 highest ranked conference champions, which ensures that a group of 5 team gets in, right? Well, now the Pac-12 has folded, all because of greed. I hate it. I can't get over the fact that an entire half of the country doesn't have a major conference anymore. I mean, think about that. Think about the logic behind that. If college football had a conference commissioner and say, you know what? You know, you draw a line right down the middle of the United States of America, and one half is not going to have a Power 5 conference. The Big 12 is right in the middle. The SEC is on the East Coast. The ACC is on the East Coast. The Big 10 is east of the center line. Nothing on the West Coast. Nothing. We don't need a major conference for half of America. Give me a break.
Yeah, this Chip Kelly audio that we've got to play today, I don't know if you want to get to it now, but Chip Kelly, I think, in some ways makes some good points, but in other ways falls short.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually liked what he had to say. I'm curious to see how you do that. But, Diesel, what I want to get to is our best guesses, your best guesses as to who makes the college football playoff next season. What do you think? What do you say? Wes says he saw tickets online to the Carolina Panthers game for 45 cents.
Yeah, I've seen this same graphic floating around, Wes, and I've seen it published by some fairly big sites, 24/7 Sports and some others. But we couldn't confirm that. Now, again, I don't know when if that was a legitimate screenshot, I don't know when it was taken, because the moment that I saw that screenshot, I went straight to StubHub. I went straight to StubHub to see if that was accurate. And on StubHub, they were listed for $8. So literally anybody could Photoshop 45 cents in over the image. Now, the image was the exact same image used on StubHub. It was the exact same format and layout of StubHub, except instead of $8, it said 45 cents. Again, I'm not sure that that's necessarily real. It could be just a viral fake photo, because that's not what we saw reflected when we looked it up.
Right. That's absolutely right. In other news, we have Juice Wells committing to Ole Miss.
They should call him Deuces Wells, because he just deuces out of every situation he's in.
Whatever he's in, peace out. Count me out on Deuces and Juice and any and all of the going to the highest bidder types. No thanks. Free agent for ransom is not what college football is supposed to be.
I also like to call him Fleece Wells, because he fleeced the Gamecock Collective and
that's right.
Deuced out.
That's right. And, look, guys, so many of these transfer guys are holding their current teams hostage for ransom. And it's just gross. It's just really gross. And so somebody said to me, everyone always says to me, it's the comeback is the same. Would you not leave for a higher paying job? Would you? Texter says, somebody on Twitter says, this is so pathetic. He's a grown man making a decision that will better himself. There's no one single loser. Would you not take a job for more money? Guys, we are professionals here. The Juice Wells is an amateur. He is a student. You go to college to learn what you want to do with your life so that you can make money once you are a professional. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. You guys are comparing a student in amateur athletics to a decision somebody would make as a professional with a family. This is not an NFL player. This is a kid in college on a scholarship.
Welcome college football now to the YouTube stream. First time.
Great to have you with us, man. Absolutely awesome to have you with us. Yeah. And so, look, folks are bent out of shape about this. They're bent out of shape of what I said. And I quote tweeted Juice Wells. I sent it to Juice Wells. Lane Kiffin could have come after me. Juice Wells could have come after me. None of them did. Michael Borky from Mississippi came after me. He covers Ole Miss, defends Ole Miss defender. I said to him, I'll send you to the folks in Columbia. See how they feel about the Juice Wells experience. Took a check for name, image, and likeness. Was cleared to play physically. Did not play. Pieces out. Gone. That's who you got. Congratulations. Ole Miss has the #1 transfer portal class. But I'll share something with you that I thought is fascinating to me. I go back and I read the blue chip ratio article every so often, because Bud Elliott puts it out every summer, right? Who's in the blue chip ratio? What teams can actually win the national championship this year? And Bud Elliott put out there, he said, look, we don't have to incorporate the transfer portal into the blue chip ratio. Just using high school recruits, the blue chip ratio is accurate. In other words, it predicts the national champion, whether you include the transfer portal or not, which is exactly my point on the whole thing. Like, it should be used as a compliment. It should be used as a side dish. If the transfer portal is your entree, I think you're doing recruiting wrong, and I think you're not going to be great. The other thing he says in the article is, he said there's one of two kinds of programs that is very heavy in the transfer portal. One is a brand new coach who's got a crap roster and he's trying to make an instant splash.
And he's got money to spend with a quality collective.
And the other one is somebody who's in trouble and he's trying to save his job. Now, Diesel, which of those two categories do you think Shane Beamer falls into? Is he a new coach who's trying to make an immediate splash, or is he in trouble and trying to save his job?
He's in trouble.
He's in trouble trying to save his job. And so, you're getting the welcome home. You're getting the 2023. Bud Elliott's telling you who's using the transfer portal, folks. He's making that abundantly clear. And Shane Beamer fits the criteria of who is using the transfer portal. Either brand new coaches trying to get off the ground running, be better than people expect in year one, or coaches trying to save their jobs, their keisters. Shane Beamer had a lot of positions last year that did not have SEC talent on them. There wasn't SEC talent on the roster in certain spots. I credit Beamer for using the transfer portal in a way that was needed to get the necessary result next year. All right. Today, we were talking about Juice Wells on the Daily Crow with Chris Phillips, and I said, frankly, I think what he did is gross. When he comes to town, give him hell. Give him hell. And it amazes me that people can't understand the difference between, a professional taking an obvious opportunity to improve themselves and the lives of their family, and an amateur gaming the system using people. And I don't do this often, folks, okay? I don't do this often, but there is a line in the Bible, okay, that says, do not let money exceed your character. Do not let your worth financially exceed your character. Do not prioritize wealth over your character. That's in the Bible. Do you think Juice Wells is following that? Don't let wealth stand in front of your character, stand before your character. Do you think he's following that? He's not at all, right? At all. He's just going to the highest bidder. And I think to use South Carolina to take the Gamecocks' collective money and not play for the Gamecocks is criminal. That needs to be written in. You got to give the money back. Sorry, man. Got to give the money back. 844 fan phone. That's 844-326-3663 is the number to get on the show today. Let's check in on the carpro.com text line. Yes, Steve.
Yeah, texter here says, I feel bad for teachers that get paid nearly nothing to teach these millionaires that don't respect the position. Well, texter, the average salary in America for a college professor is $150,000. So that means average. That means some of them are making $300,000-$400,000. Some of them are making far less, but that's average. And, if you're there for a long time, you make quite a bit.
Yeah, but I think he's talking about grade school teachers, high school teachers.
Yeah, but they're not millionaires in grade school and high school. They're millionaires once they get to college.
Oh, right. But the teachers that are helping these kids grow up to be who they are.
Oh, yeah, that's very true.
Right?
That's very true.
Are making squat. And it's awful. Texter says Juice Wells is a mercenary, not a professional. Texter says, I agree with you. Good riddance, Juice Wells. Texter says, I'm waiting on Mark to drop. I'm a professional. He's a student. And I use both those terms loosely.
Why didn't you say I'm a professional? I'm 40.
Yeah, that's right, baby. I'm a professional. I mean, it's pre-college graduation and it's post-college graduation. That's what it is. And I'll tell you what, man, I mean, you hear me say on this show that I think in many respects, Clemson basketball fans are the same people as South Carolina football fans. They have been walked on. They have been abused. And, after 13 years of poor treatment from Brad Barnell, he gives you 2 good months and can't fire him. 2 good months. He's treated us bad for 13 years.
Imagine giving Shane Beamer 13 years to figure it out.
Oh,
that's where Clemson basketball fans are. So you Gamecock fans who are just enamored still with Shane Beamer, that's what we're talking about. But 13 years of average coaching, average teams.
And the best way to understand that is to use the relationship analogy. Your wife treated you badly for 13 years. Now she treats you well for 2 months. Would you say, can't leave her? Got to stay with her. Treated me well for 2 months. Clemson's 9-0. Can't get rid of Brad Brownell. But the worst example that I saw of this was last week when there was a report out that Juice Wells could still consider going back to South Carolina. Took their money, was cleared to play, didn't play. Is riding around in a souped-up golf cart, property of the school, even when he announces that he's transferring. Getting haircuts in the barber shop, inside the football building, even when he announces he's going to transfer. Chris Phillips asked Gamecock fans, Diesel, would you take Juice Wells back? Worst thing I ever saw in my life. Worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Like 75-80% of the people responded, said, hell yeah, I'd take him.
You know the song Separate Ways by Journey?
No.
That song goes, someday love will find you. You know that song, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That song is what Gamecock fans are and how they feel about Juice Wells. That song is about a woman who broke a guy's heart, but he's singing, well, if he ever hurts you, true love won't desert you. I'll be here for you. Once the guy that you left me for breaks your heart, I'll be here. Come on back. Jeez, Gamecock fans, have some spine.
Yeah, you gotta get over that, guys. Like, you don't accept a guy back just because he can ball when he's abused you, right? You don't accept a girl back because she's hot. Just because she's hot. She didn't treat you well. That's all you need to know.
There's that phrase that no matter how hot she is, somebody somewhere is tired of her bleep.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, Juice,
and he's not even that hot. He only gave you 1 touchdown last year.
Juice is the guy where you're tired of his bleep, quite frankly. So anyway, guys, hey, Mark, what do you make of Shane Beamer's slaying the transfer portal? What do you make of it? What I make of it is that he's plugging some holes. He's got a good collective. He's doing a nice job. But the blue chip ratio ignores the transfer portal and has still been accurate in predicting the national champion 20 years in a row. There are 3 teams in the college football playoff that meet the blue chip ratio: Alabama, Texas, and Michigan. What the blue chip ratio is telling you is that Washington is essentially eliminated. If you look at the Las Vegas odds to win the national championship, they're also telling you the same thing. I think Michigan's odds are like plus 200. Alabama's odds are plus 200, meaning if you bet $100 and that team wins, you get $200. Texas's odds are plus 300. Washington's odds are plus 600. They're telling you Washington doesn't really have a shot. And I got to tell you this, Diesel, this is a head versus heart thing for me. Okay. It really is head versus heart. I value Dabo having his transfer portal policy so much. I value that. Do we have that clip still from Don Munson? I value that so much. Like, my heart really wants to pull for Clemson because Dabo's right. It's not best for kids to make it a bidding war. It's not best for the sport to make it a bidding war, right? And Clemson has 0 portal commitments. South Carolina has 9. How does that happen? South Carolina is bidding. Clemson is not. But if you're a college football fan, regardless of what side of the rivalry you're on, can't you respect that from Clemson? Can't you say, man, that is noble? There's ethics involved there, right? That's ethical, what they're doing. They're not going to take part in, I don't know, the whoring out of college football. They're not going to take part of that, right? They're into giving kids an education, making them part of a family. Like, that's what Clemson is into. And so I admire that so much. But I'll tell you guys, my head says that if you're not going to use the transfer portal, you got to have a top 5 class to win it all. Georgia doesn't really use it. They have top 5 classes. Alabama uses it sparingly. They have top 5 classes. Clemson's class this year is number 15. I don't think you can win the national championship with a class ranked 15th and not using the transfer portal. I don't think that can happen. I don't. I just don't think that can happen. So my head says, gosh, Clemson, I love you for this. You are right. You hear me complain about this on offsides on a daily basis. You are so right about what you're doing. This is virtuous, what you're doing. And I wish other schools would have the guts to do what you're doing as well. My heart says, class number 15, no transfer portal guys. It's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be good enough. Agree or disagree? Guys, agree or disagree? Diesel, I love. It's hard not to pull for Clemson when you see that they're doing it the right way, that they're not going to get involved in this bidding war. I commend them for this. I commend them, So at the same time, the flip side is, do you have enough with a 15th ranked recruiting class and no portal usage to win?
Well, that's why I said last week, I'm surprised that we haven't seen or heard about Clemson trying to do NIL in a different way, in a way that they feel can, number one, be successful, and number two, can adhere to the university and the program's values. We talked about how the Atlanta Braves have locked up a lot of talent, young talent, for a very, very long time with smaller contracts, but they're offering longer term deals. And people, everybody's looking at how are the Braves doing this? It's actually really simple. You offer a lot of young guys long-term longevity and security. And I'm shocked that we haven't seen Clemson offer something similar to that, doing NIL in the Clemson way, and find some success with it.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting stuff indeed. All right, up next, we're going to be talking to Jim Szoke about a dub? A win? How is this? That's next, and this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. I got to say, every time that I've seen the Carolina Panthers ranked very highly on the defensive side of the ball, they've got a top 5 defense in the NFL this year. I've asked myself if half of the reason for that is because the opposing offenses don't have to do anything, right? They just kind of pack it in the second half of games because the Carolina offense isn't going to be threatening anybody. You lead 20-3 at halftime. Carolina's offense can't score, so just run it and punt it and, take your win. You don't really have to make this huge effort to put up a bunch of yards, a bunch of points against Carolina. The fact that you don't need points to beat Carolina helps the defensive ranking. But yesterday, in Bank of America Stadium, there was a team that desperately needed to win. And the Carolina Panthers defense showed up and showed out in a big way, in a slog. There is something cathartic about watching millionaires have to play in weather like that, right? There's something very enjoyable about that. It was cold. It was miserable. The wifey and I were inside the whole day.
It's called Schadenfreude, taking joy in someone else's misery.
Right, but I'll tell you, Carolina got it done. Bryce Young, solid, not spectacular. 18 for 24, 167 yards. Desmond Ridder was bad. They're going to want to be rid of him by the end of the year. And Carolina found a way to get their second win of the season. Jim Szoke on the Carolina Panthers broadcast team joins us right now. Jim, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and yours. I truly appreciate your time. As you watched the game unfold yesterday, how did Carolina get it done?
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you guys, too. I think, a lot of things you said, the defense has been solid all year. And the thing that was kind of missing with a bad offense that needed help for complementary football was some explosive plays. And they found some in the second half when Troy Hill forced a fumble at the 24-yard line that Brian Burns recovered. And then obviously the interception by Xavier Woods, would say set up the final drive, but you're back at your own 5-yard line, but took the ball away. And as you said, bad football by Desmond Ridder. You're playing for a field goal at that point to extend your lead, and he turns the ball over on a really dicey throw there. And I think that was the extra thing that happened, because the defense has been really good about keeping teams, largely in check, but they needed to do more. I mean, honestly, they were last in the league in takeaways, last in the league in quarterback sacks. And I don't think they had maybe one yesterday. So they came through when it mattered there, and they did keep the score down, which again, that always helps. And then just enough out of the offense, like you said, another good day of running the football with Chuba Hubbard in particular. So that's been all 3 weeks since the coaching change that they've been good, and Chuba's been very good in the run game too. So a lot of that stuff, I think, they're not that good on offense, Mark. So the formula is going to be, shorten the game. How short can you make the game? Get to the fourth quarter, make a play. And it turned out it took a 18-play, 90-yard field goal drive to get it done. But they hung around and were able to steal one at the end again.
Jim, has anybody considered throwing an endorsement out there to Miley Cyrus to get her to come in like a wrecking ball and bust through that brick wall that's blocking the goal line for Carolina? I mean, you hear a common refrain, offense gets tougher when you get down into the red zone with a shorter field. What are you seeing that's just causing this offense to essentially crumble when you get down inside the red zone? We saw it a week prior when Carolina got down to the 1-yard line and then got backed up, had to kick a field goal. Why can't they get it across the goal line? What's going wrong down there?
I think, teams know to try to take away your playmaker. A lot of times it's Adam Thielen. And actually, Bryce made a good throw on that down at the goal line, short 4-yard throw. Adam is a little bit behind him. Normally comes up with that catch. That could have been a touchdown. But a lot of times your larger point is offensive line play. They don't get good blocking on a short yardage situation. You'll see a handoff that goes for -3 yards. You get down in that short field because teams are expecting, by and large, the run as opposed to the pass. And they're right as far as the bulk of the season, what they've been trying to do down there. So, yeah, we thought maybe this would be the year they'd have a more consistent, say, tight end pass catcher, and they thought that'd be Hayden Hurst. And of course, he's on the IR now, but even when he was healthy, he was not great. Tommy Trumbull does have a couple touchdowns this year, but that's where those big receivers, big targets make a difference, is in the red zone, and especially really short yardage inside the 10, inside the 5. Especially with a smaller quarterback, need those bigger targets. It's hard to throw to smaller guys with a smaller quarterback. So it's been a struggle. I see some other teams that do that much better as far as just a jumbo package. Last year, the Panthers were somewhat famous for bringing in the extra 6th, 7th offensive lineman and just line up big boys as fullbacks even out there. And this staff has chosen not to do that. But you could bring in, say, even something like bring in Andy Dalton off the bench if you need a yard. There was things they did earlier in the year like that. They're not doing now. So there's probably some other ways they could go about, just picking up those short yardage situations.
How many points does the defense need to hold the opponent to give this team a chance to win week in and week out? Honestly, Jim, based on what you've seen, is it single digits? I mean, they did that yesterday. They won. Is it 16, 17 points? Where would you put that number?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, yesterday, if they give up, even 10 points, lose that game.
Yeah.
I'll say the best touchdown they didn't score was the one where Chuba Hubbard tackled himself at the 1-yard line. That was a smart play, and I'm glad they talked about that because they've not had a lot of football where they've had to, make a decision like that, which was, use the timeouts, kick the field goal, work the clock instead of scoring that touchdown there. But, every game is different, of course. It depends. But, I mean, by and large, it's a team that is not scoring more than about one offensive touchdown per game a lot of times, and maybe you kick a field goal or two. So I would think realistically, if I'm thinking going into any game, let's not give up more than 14. Back in the day, 17 was always that line. It felt like if you don't give up 17 points or more than 17 points, you're going to win most of the games in the NFL. I think for this team, that margin of error is probably more like 13 or 14. But yeah, even when they fell down 7-0, you're thinking, now we got to score a touchdown. But as it turned out, 3 field goals. got the job done instead. But yeah, at some point, yeah, the payoff's going to come there. Hopefully something like that end of game drive by Bryce Young, maybe it becomes a spark and they get more confidence. It was nice to see him smile. So, I'm a big fan of momentum. So, even though it was just a field goal drive, not a touchdown, I think, maybe some things can start to come together as they get these 3 more chances out there this year.
His name is Jim Szoke, Panthers color analyst. Jim, I've started looking into some of the mock drafts that people are putting out there. Most of them are looking at wide receivers for Carolina there at 33. Obviously, O-line is a big point of concern as well. The Panthers absolutely need both. So if you were putting on Scott Fitterer's shoes on draft day, are you going after wide receiver or are you going after offensive line?
I'm always, a fan of you've got to take the best player and not reach for any position too soon. So if one or the other, there's somebody on your draft board that you weren't expecting, to say we have the 33rd pick. If that guy is there, you want to move up a couple spots into the late first round, and you've got somebody ranked higher that fits what you do. And I think it's another thing that's often overlooked when you talk about mock drafts, and they just kind of rank players on abilities. Abilities are different on different teams. Different guys fit better on different teams in different schemes. So it's not universal from one team to another. So if a guy that fits on your vision of your board, what you run on offense, if it's like this offensive guard, if it's that wide receiver, the good thing is they should both have Brady Christensen and Austin Corbett back next year. So you hopefully get your 2 starting guards back. It's a nice starting place. As you can see, you need depth beyond that there. So I think that's something to look at. Thinking, is Ike Ekwonu in the right spot? Should he be at left tackle, or is he a guard, or is he a right tackle? Maybe moving some guys around that you have now, and that creates another opening that you could attack in the draft or in free agency. Receivers, a lot of times new guys come into the league, they're very good in college, but they take a couple of years to develop, and they just spent a high pick on Jonathan Mingo. So with Adam Thielen being the age he is, maybe that's something more that you could get a premier guy in free agency and then groom, Mingo for a second year to become a little bit better. You've invested something in the young guy. But again, if there's somebody super high in your draft board, you certainly want to come away with somebody. But just to pick position players, just to fill roster spots, I'd rather get, even if it's not a big need, the best linebacker. If some guy's a stud linebacker who should not be there at the end of the first round, go grab the best player that gives you a chance to start 16, 17 games.
Jim Szoke, analyst, Carolina Panthers, joins us every single Monday today, just the second time all year, but thrilled to do it after a dub, after a win. Merry Christmas to you and yours, Jim. Off next week. We look forward to speaking with you next year. All right?
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
All right, you too. Jim Szoke, the Carolina Panthers. Diesel, frankly, shocked. I mean, the here's the Carolina Panthers point totals this year, okay? 10, 17, 27. How did that happen? 13, 24, 21. 13, 13, 13, 10, 10, 18, 6, 9. Diesel, they have not scored more. Like, this team has not scored more, all right, than 18 points. They haven't scored 20 points, all right, since early October.
I put up a poll right as Carolina got the ball back there inside the 10-yard line on that last drive, and I set it for 10 minutes. 10-minute poll. Knew I wasn't going to get a lot of votes, but a very, very short window. I said, let's be real. How much faith do you have in Bryce and the Panthers to go 96 yards for a score?
Yeah.
Options were 0%, 25%, 50%, or 100%. Most common answer, 50% said 0% faith in him to go get it done.
You needed to have one answer choice that was, so you're saying there's a chance. That needed to be.
Yeah, I wanted to set the window short just in case they did drive and score to get points. People wouldn't flood the response with 100%. I totally had faith in him. No, you didn't. No, you didn't, you liars.
By the way, Diesel, this is interesting. Even though the post was 3 days ago, my most recent mention on social media, StubHub liked the tweet about the Panther ticket being $8. And here are things that cost more than a Panthers ticket: a 3-pack of underwear. StubHub liked the
Love
tweet
it.
Just now. Them and their 222,000 followers. All right, my friends. Up next on the show, how will the expanded college football playoff alter the requirements to get in? It's info you'll get nowhere else but right here On Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, we are the fan upstate.
Honest sports talk. For a feeling of satisfaction that you get right in here. That's what it means to be an offsider. Are you bold enough for
What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the fan upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Thrilled to have you guys with us. Could not do it without you. So, my friends, this is very, very interesting to me. And in this segment, I want to take a look ahead as to what's going to happen, expanded football playoff next year. Tomorrow, we're going to have bowl predictions on the show, college football playoff predictions coming your way on the show. Upset picks will be heard on the show. Don Munson, Jake Crane, slated to be joining us on the show. But guys, this is the information I'm about to give you. You won't get anywhere else. Okay, it is the Offsides proprietary formula, and it is gold. Okay, in the 4-team playoff era, to make the college football playoff, you had to have a 4-year recruiting average of a class ranked around number 10. So you had to be top 10 over a 4-year period to make the 4-team college football playoff. In those 4 years, you could have a down year, but that your worst class couldn't be lower than number 20. Okay, so if it was outside the top 20, you were eliminated. That's who made the 4-team college football playoff. Well, what does it say for the 12-team college football playoff? I am so glad you asked. I went back and I did a little digging, and I looked at the teams, all the teams that would have made the 12-team college football playoff this year. The teams that would be comprising the 12-team college football playoff in 2023 would be Liberty, Michigan, Washington, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Missouri, Penn State, right? Ole Miss. Those were the teams that would be making the 12-team playoff this year. So certainly with more teams in, the requirements to get in have dipped, right? Like you don't have to be so elite. You might not have to average a top 10 class to get in. Where do you need to be? The stats are in, folks, and it's right around top 15, top 16. That's where you need to be over a 4-year period. Have an average class of top 15, top 16 to get in to the college football playoff. The Florida State Seminoles, the Ole Miss Rebels, the Washington Huskies, the Missouri Tigers, all had classes over the last 4 years that were about 2021. So it's possible, that's not the average, but it's possible to get in with classes that are just top 25, right? All of which is fantastic news if you are the South Carolina Gamecocks. Because for not just the last year, this last season, but also the 2023 season, Shane Beamer has now hit the blue chip ratio 2 consecutive years. Now, the South Carolina recruiting class is all about quality over quantity. 11 out of the 17 commitments are 4 stars or 5 stars. Likewise, Clemson also hits it. Clemson has 18 commitments. 12 of these commitments are 4 stars or 5 stars. Last year, Shane Beamer also hit the blue chip ratio. So now Shane Beamer has hit the blue chip ratio 2 consecutive seasons. Last year, he was exactly 12 out of 24, so he hit the blue chip ratio 2 years in a row. You do that 4 consecutive years, you make the blue chip ratio, you have 50% of your players be 4 or 5 stars 2 consecutive years, and what you have is a roster that meets the minimum requirement to win a bloody national championship. So when you consider that Shane Beamer beat Clemson last year, when you consider that he's got an outside shot if 1 or 2 guys can land of being higher than Clemson in the college football recruiting rankings this year, when you consider the transfer portal dominance from South Carolina, folks, Shane Beamer is doing some good things in Columbia. Like you can say that openly and honestly and be true. I mean, we're telling you the truth about that. All of that is very, very obvious and very, very good. So to me, again, to restate my belief, you can win it all with a top 5 class and no transfer portal use, or a top 15 class and pretty heavy transfer portal use. But you cannot win a national championship if you're outside the top 5 and you're not using the transfer portal. That's just my opinion. How about the teams that have won the national championship according to this blue chip ratio? Last year, Georgia won it, 77% blue chip ratio. 77% of their players were 4 or 5 star players. 2021, Georgia, 80%. 2020, Alabama, 83%. 2019, LSU, 64%. 2018, Clemson, 61%. 2017, Alabama, 80%. Clemson, 2016, 52%, the lowest percentage ever to win. 2015, Alabama, 77%. 2014, Ohio State, 68%. 2013, Florida State, 53%. 2012, Alabama, 71%. 2011, Alabama, also 71%. Now, the author of the blue chip ratio, Bud Elliott, believes that at some point there's going to be a team with a blue chip ratio in the 40% chance, right, that's going to win the national championship. So he thinks the blue chip ratio is going to be busted eventually. He thinks it's going to be when a team that has a transcendent quarterback or a transfer portal guy catches fire. He said it almost happened in 2014 with Oregon and Marcus Mariota. They made it all the way to the national championship game before losing to Ohio State. He says an extremely talented Cincinnati team with a record with a record 9 players drafted made the college football playoff, but was 2 wins away from winning it all. TCU didn't make the blue chip ratio. Was an awesome story last year, 2022. Made it to the final game only to lose by 8 touchdowns to Georgia. Who's next in line? Well, it could be Tennessee, could be Florida State, could be Washington. Washington Diesel meets the criteria that could be the blue chip ratio buster. They're at 34% blue chip ratio. 34%. But they've got the Heisman runner-up, Michael Penix Jr. Could Washington be the one to do the trick this year? What do you guys think? What do you guys say? Coming up next on the show, I will reveal to you the 12 teams that I think right now would be my picks to click in the 2024 12-team college football playoff. My 12 teams that as of today are my best bets to be in this bad boy. That, my friends, is next. And this is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel. And we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, everybody? This is Offsides. Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Rolling on until about 7 o'clock p.m. today. Always thrilled to have you guys with us and appreciate you making us part of your day each and every day here on the show. So, we've given you guys the rundown, the scoop, the skinny that you are not going to get anywhere else. Okay? You're not going to get it anywhere else. All right? The parameters to get in the 12-team college football playoff. And the good news for Gamecock fans. Diesel, I think that's a podcastable segment because everyone always says we have no good news for Gamecock fans. Right? Like, could you have better news for Gamecock fans than the recruiting they're doing right now is going to meet the prerequisite to make the college football playoff, right? Like they're recruiting, their classes are good enough to make the expanded 12-team college football playoff. That's pretty good freaking news, right? Pretty good news. Texter says, Mark, I respect Dabo for his stance on the portal. However, as a Gamecock fan, I see the need for these guys Beamer is bringing in. In a perfect world, I'd take a 7-5 team next season. Like, Diesel, do you hear the depression and the desperation?
Perfect world, 7-5.
In the perfect world, he'd take a 7-5 team. In a perfect world, I'd take mediocre. No. That's in a mediocre world, Texter. Okay? Like in a mediocre world, you would take 7-5. A 7-5 team over 12-0 mercenaries. All right? By the way, next year for the Gamecocks, 7-5 is success. 6-6 is disappointment. 5-7 or below, looking for a new head coach. You can't tell me year 4, losing record in year 4, back-to-back losing records. You can't tell me that's the guy. I'm sorry. Can't tell me that's the guy. Let's see here. Texter says, there is no way I'd ever take Juice Wells back. I don't care that he left for more money. I can't stand the fact that he was cleared to play and didn't.
Wait, weren't they saying the same thing about the guy that left and transferred to Oregon last year? What was his name?
Jordan Birch.
Jordan Birch. You were saying the exact same thing about Jordan Birch. If Jordan Birch wanted to come back, we'd totally let him. Oh, he was deceived. That's why he went to Oregon, because he was deceived.
Yeah.
No, he left you for more money.
That's it.
And it happened again.
And
you're saying the same things again.
Texter says, did we ever confirm that story about the Minnesota QB for $30,000 in a bowl game because he was the only one left on the roster? No, Texter, I didn't see that. I get a lot of these weird graphics from time to time that are claiming these things, and unless I see it corroborated by a major news source, I don't really go public with that. Texter says, and they say you can't ever compliment Beamer. There you go. There's been a lot of positives about South Carolina on the show today. You are a big man, Mark. I don't care what the bottom 10%ers say about you. Well, thank you very much, Texter. I appreciate you guys. Diesel and I are bringing the noise, bringing the great content today and tomorrow here on Offsides.
It's funny is the bottom 10%ers say a lot of things, but they also listen. And so we appreciate them.
They do.
In their own special way.
And thank you, Columbia, for once again leading the way in downloads. That's unbelievable. You know, like you guys know the scoop, right? Like you guys get the inside scoop when you listen to this show live. All right. You know what we're doing. You understand that we've seen the numbers and we've seen the formula. And so we're not going to change what we're doing because we see the results, right? Like we see the results. We are, somebody said we are the Paul Feinbaum show of the Palmetto rivalry. Happy to do it.
Pongo Bongo.
Pongo Bongo. I can't remember his name.
He says on YouTube, Mark is such a Clemson homer.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Yeah, I know he's just. I mean, it's become kind of an inside joke.
I know that.
You know, but people listening, not everyone listening, is in on the inside joke. So, guys, Texter wants to know we can turn in our after Christmas upset picks today, right? That is tomorrow, Texter. Tomorrow as of 4 p.m. Okay, that will open tomorrow. Tomorrow 4 to 7. You can also text in with them Wednesday 3 to 7. Thursday 3 to 7, or Friday 3 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Y'all better get it right because I just hit again on a bowl pick And I am coming for anybody who's in that 20-point range. I'm coming for your ass.
I gotta tell you, man, I was confused when Diesel told me he got it, and I'm like, wait, when is my game again? You're already getting more points than my
I
game?
had forgot who I picked. I had to
Yeah.
message Dan B and say, who did I pick?
I got Georgia Tech over UCF, but here's what I want to share with you guys, okay? Who is going to make the college football playoff next year? Well, using the parameters that we just gave you about recruiting classes, okay, and where you need to be. How about this, my friends? How about this? Here are my 12. Now, Diesel, remember, and you can't just go by the best teams. We no longer have the Pac-12 next year.
Mm-hmm.
There will be a Big 12 champion. Who's it going to be? Like, no more Oklahoma, no more Texas. One of those Island of Misfit Toys teams in that conference is going to be in, right? Who's going to be in from the ACC?
And somehow a conference that's been in flux, losing their best programs multiple times over the last decade, is seen as better than the ACC.
Who's that?
The Big 12.
Oh,
the Big 12
yeah.
is seen as better than the ACC.
Yeah, they are.
How?
Yeah.
Why? I mean, Oklahoma State might be the best program left in that conference.
Yeah.
Baylor might be the best team left in that conference. And everybody's like, way better than the ACC.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that because, my friends, here are my 12 playoff teams, way too early, 12 playoff teams for next season. Are you ready? Michigan and Ohio State, Alabama and Georgia. One of those two for each conference will be your conference champion. We'll get the auto bid, right? Now we're over to the SEC. How many SEC teams are going to be in? I already have 2. I'm going to put Texas and Ole Miss in, Diesel. Now I'm at 4. I've got Notre Dame in. I've got Missouri in, there's 5. I've got Oklahoma in there, 6. I've got Clemson as your ACC champion. I've got Kansas State as your Big 12 champion. They're number 25 in the final college football playoff rankings. Number 25. And I've got Liberty because I'm a big believer in the head coach, Jamie Chadwell. Like if Diesel, if he can do what he did with Liberty in year 1, like that's year 1. That's the worst roster he's going to have.
Well, to be fair, Liberty was pretty stacked already from having Hugh Freeze. Now, I don't know what Liberty's transfer portal situation was like, if they had a lot of defections when Hugh Freeze took off. So Jamie Chadwell came into a relatively good roster. He really did. And all credit is due to Jamie Chadwell. He's a heck of a coach. I think some of his methods are a little silly, but he's a heck of a coach.
Like what?
It's some of the locker room antics, I think, are a little over the top.
That was the GOAT one?
He's the guy that had somebody bring in and decapitate a stuffed animal with a chainsaw, which was just weird.
Yeah.
You know, and there were others. I can't remember them, but that's the one that sticks out to me. So Liberty was not as bereft as you think they were when he took over the job. Again, I don't know what their transfer portal situation was like after last season, after Hugh Freeze left. But Liberty, you know, they also won a very weak Conference USA. So, you know, they by virtue of going undefeated, they were in that conversation. I think SMU was probably a much better team than Liberty is. And it also points out the hypocrisy of the way the College Football Playoff Committee looked at Florida State and Liberty. They said Liberty was the most deserving because they went undefeated, so we got to put them in. But they said, well, Florida State is not one of the 4 best, so we got to keep them out. Didn't make any sense. So you either apply it, you apply it in the same way for the College Football Playoff in the New Year's Six, or you don't. Right. So if you're wanting to look at the best group of 5 team, you got to probably look at SMU.
Right. 100%, man. And so the reality, though, is, D, so Liberty's last 4 recruiting classes are 110th.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have all of the group of 5 recruiting classes the last 4 years in front of me. I guarantee you there's 20 or 30 that are better than 110.
Probably. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so Hugh Freeze did do work there. Jamie Chadwell got more out of less. I think they're going to be even better next year. This might be my most homer call of all time, that I've got 6 SEC teams in nor do I know that that's even really possible when you consider that who's going to be playing who and teams with 2 losses and 3 losses. And I guess, Diesel, I'm going down this road for the reason being that with Florida State being left out, I know that wins and losses don't really matter anymore, right? Like they're going to go with the teams they think are the best teams, no matter what the results are.
They're going to go with the teams that they think will give them the best television product.
Yep.
And they have solidified the idea, I believe, again, that this was a Willie P. Phrase that he coined, brand power invitational. I take that back. I think it was Diddy who coined that phrase, effectively turning the college football playoff into the brand power invitational. Who can give us the most eyeballs? Who can give us the best games? Who's not going to get blown out?
6 SEC teams in. And I'm asking myself, okay, push comes to shove. Are they going to take 9-3 Oklahoma or 10-2 NC State? I think their precedent this year tells me they're going to take Oklahoma, right? Are they going to take 9-3 Missouri or 10-2 Oklahoma State? I think they're going to take 9-3 Missouri. The precedent has been set. If they're willing to do that, to give the prostate exam to an undefeated Power 5 conference champion, they sure as hell will do that to a team with 2 losses, right? And so in my 12-team playoff, my first rendition, I've got 6 SEC teams in, including Oklahoma and Texas, the newbies in the SEC. Notre Dame finished number 16 this year, 3 losses. I think they could be in. It's going to be, you're going to have more games matter for the college football playoff. More games are going to have playoff implications. But the best games are going to matter less. And you know who's really going to hate it, Diesel, is going to be Josh Pate, who specifically avoids talking college football playoff until after Thanksgiving. Like he won't mention the word. It's a Carlin 7 dirty word.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate that because I hate watching a mid-October group of 5 game and all they're talking about is the playoff race in between plays. Shut up. Analyze this game, would you? Would you analyze the game in front of us?
But guess
not all the other
increase?
games across the country.
Guess what's going to increase, Diesel? Exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
I know.
When you have, well, you never know, playoff implications, 2 lost teams, everything, everyone's attention, all anybody cares about.
Well, what they've done is they've essentially turned group of 5 games, they've turned college FCS playoff games into a big commercial for the Power 5 national championship.
Right.
For the 14 playoff, now 12-team playoff.
Right. And a playoff whose crown, a sport whose crown jewel is the postseason, who is now shunning the regular season, feels a lot more like college basketball than it does the college football that I grew up knowing and loving. All right, my friends, coming your way next, we'll be joined by none other than Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. Gamecocks on fire in the portal. Will that continue? Next here at Offsides, we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Fantastic to have you guys with us. Joined right now by our good friend Chris Phillips of the Spurs Up Show. He joins us each and every day at this particular time, each and every Monday at this time, and he joins us right now on the show. Chris, what is good, my friend? How are you?
Mark and Diesel, what's going on, guys? I'm doing well. We're just in the midst of the transfer portal madness, obviously, gearing up for National Signing Day on Wednesday, and excited for some bowl game action. Today's game, I know you and I, Mark, talked about it earlier on the airwaves, which thank you so much for coming on the show. The famous Toastery Bowl, living up to the hype in a way in which you'd expect. I think I saw it was 28-0 after the first quarter. Western Kentucky looked like they would rather be doing anything else. So excited to see some SEC teams take the field next week. And but no, it's great to be on with you guys. I really do appreciate you having me on and excited to chat.
Yeah, so Chris, you and I discussed earlier today the transfer portal and the Gamecocks' 9 commits in the transfer portal. Look, there are a lot of Gamecock fans flexing about this, but was this not a necessity for Shane Beamer, considering, some embarrassing holes that shouldn't have existed on an SEC caliber team?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, I think Shane Beamer, especially when in a position like he is, you have to go out and build through the transfer portal, Mark. I think you can directly tie South Carolina's struggles in the 2023 season from misses in the transfer portal, as you pointed out. So I think it absolutely was a necessity. Obviously for a program like South Carolina, you're not going to be successful if you're not able to build via the portal and add immediate impact talent, right? You and I both know that coaches aren't getting 4, 5, 6, 7 years to build a program, nor should they when the portal exists. And so it's by necessity, but you definitely give credit to what Shane Beamer and company are doing. I don't know that I'd put it on the level, obviously, as to what a Lane Kiffin is doing. I know I wouldn't, because I've proclaimed Lane Kiffin over at Ole Miss the transfer portal king, and what they're doing with the Grove Collective is wildly impressive. But I think South Carolina, Mark, certainly has gotten some difference makers at some positions of need. The question that I get more than anything right now is, when are they going to add some offensive linemen? And I think it's a really interesting conversation, Mark, because I'm hearing a lot more excuses for the offensive line than I thought I would after this season, in regards to people saying that it was just the injury bug that caused the shuffling and the struggles, which it certainly didn't help. But I still would be stunned if South Carolina didn't go out and add 2 or 3 quality offensive linemen to boost depth and boost competition. But I like some of the guys they've added on the defensive side of the football, a couple of ACC standouts at the defensive tackle and the edge spot. Obviously, the pickup of Rocket Sanders, the running back from Arkansas, it speaks for itself. Jaden McGowan, the wide receiver from Vandy, I think is a nice pickup. And, they've added some other nice supporting cast pieces, whether they be depth pieces or guys who can realistically come in and immediately contribute and fight for a job. And I don't think they're done yet, Mark. I think that's the key. So we'll be able to greater assess this transfer portal class, this signing class, if you will, once the dust completely settles. But certainly, Mark, back to your original point, this is a transfer portal cycle that Shane Beamer had to successfully navigate. And I think so far, so good when you consider all the guys they've picked up and have committed to them at this point.
Chris, recruiting rankings, portal acquisitions, all of that is great on paper, but ultimately the only thing that matters are results on the field. So what is your level of fear that South Carolina's 2 straight elite recruiting classes, both from the high school ranks and from the portal under Shane Beamer, might be for naught if the results aren't there and Shane Beamer gets fired? If that happens, obviously a lot of these guys, we've seen it in trends of other schools that have lost their head coaches. A lot of these guys will probably look elsewhere. Like, how scared of that are you?
Diesel, not as much as you might think, because I think South Carolina, and I think as they should be, is still really firmly behind Shane Beamer. Now, to your point, no coach is immune to the effects of losing, right? We saw that this year. I never thought, even in a 5-7 season, I just never expected to hear the chatter I heard regarding Shane Beamer's job status in year 3 of his tenure, especially, guys, this was back after the Tennessee game. This is after like the 4th or 5th game of the season. You started to hear some of the moans and groans, and I know the expectations have been risen, which is a positive, but I was surprised to hear that. I think Gamecock Nation, I know you guys have talked about it a lot, is still firmly behind Shane Beamer, still feels confident he is the guy. Now, to your point, does it cause a little bit concern when you look at that 2024 schedule? And again, I mentioned this earlier today. I know that Mark nor any Florida Gator is going to give any sympathy to a Gamecock fan when they talk about the schedule, but certainly it's easier than I guess you could say the 2023 slate, but I'm not sure it's quite conducive to, a big breakout year that I think Shane Beamer probably needs. So I don't have a great level of fear, Diesel. I mean, certainly it's always in the back of your mind, if they go 5-7 again, or God forbid go worse than that, who knows what could happen, right? Expect the unexpected in SEC football, and certainly fans do not have patience when it comes to wanting to win. But I think I will be stunned, Diesel. I'll say this. I would be really surprised if Shane Beamer did not make it to 2025. That would really, really surprise me, even if they miss a bowl game. Now 4-8 or worse, and I think all bets are off. I think it's 5-7. I think there will be a lot of heat, but I do think Shane Beamer, similar to what we're seeing with Sam Pittman right now, I think he'll be back for the 5th year. But all that talk and all that conversation can be avoided if South Carolina can just have a winning record, 7-5 or better, which seems like it should be doable and should be achievable in year 4 of his tenure.
Chris, are you ready for some good news?
I am ready for good news. Yes, Mark. Hit me with it.
I've been meaning to share this with you on your show, because I did a little research based on something I saw you say. A couple of weeks ago, you said, I don't really know what the hope is for a team like South Carolina. Not just South Carolina, but for, like, do you remember saying that? Like a middle of the pack team in a Power 5? Like, what is the hope? Well, the hope is, that if you look at the teams that would have made the 12-team college football playoff this year, all right, and teams that are of South Carolina's ilk, Missouri has had recruiting classes ranked about 24th, the last 4 years. Ole Miss, 22nd. Florida State, 20th. Arizona, they're number 14 in the playoff rankings, outside the top 30, the last 4 years in recruiting. So, Chris, there's the hope, brother, is that, you don't need to, with the expanded college football playoff, you don't need to recruit like gangbusters to make this thing. And whereas in the 14 playoff, you needed to, proprietary formula, putting a little trademark sign up right now, Chris, you needed to average a top 10 recruiting class over 4 years to make the 14 playoff year in and year out. The 12-team playoff, that average, you need that be around an average of top 15, top 16. There are 3 teams this year, Ole Miss, or would have been 3 teams this year, Ole Miss, Missouri, and Washington, that would have been outside the top 20 their last 4 years. So how does it feel to know that what Shane Beamer's doing recruiting-wise meets the bare minimum standard to make the college football playoff and contend for a national title? That's some good news. That'll put a little wind in your sails, does it not?
That's an early stocking stuffer, Mark. I think we could argue. No, I mean, to your point, Mark, I definitely think a school like South Carolina, I think I mentioned others like Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky even. The expanded playoff, certainly to your point, is the rebuttal to the argument that I had that in this NIL world, portal world, where it feels like some of the middle tier, quote unquote, schools are getting picked on and they're kind of serving as a farm system to the larger schools. That is certainly some good news to your point. I think also where the hope, you speak on the word hope, right? Where does the hope come from? The hope comes from, and the transfer portal's great, recruiting's great, but there's a guy currently on your roster named Loris Sellers, right, at the quarterback position. Him having a successful 2024, South Carolina meeting that 7-5 or better mark, which I think we're probably going to be in agreement on, that's going to be success. 7-5 or better should be the goal, will be the goal, and that will be deemed as success. If you can do that with a first-year quarterback, and I think he can show the real capabilities of being a big-time signal caller, a big-time QB1, show that athleticism and physicality we saw in the run against Vanderbilt, show that arm strength we saw in the throw against Furman, but show that all year long. I think that's where a lot of your hope comes from, too, if you're South Carolina. So, I mean, listen, we've seen Shane Beamer, Mark, to your point, do it before and go out in the transfer portal and get Juice Wells and get Spencer Rattler. And, unfortunately, you had Marcus Satterfield holding those guys back for about 90% of the season. But when you had the right plays being called, you beat Tennessee, you beat Clemson back-to-back 2 top 10 wins. So we've seen Beamer have those type of successes like Lane Kiffin's having right now in the transfer portal. And all it takes is one really good cycle, and to your point, staying in that top 20 or top 15 range of recruiting, and you can make a run at it. So I think certainly, no matter how you feel as a college football traditionalist or purist, or, if you think that the 12-team playoff is going to ruin the regular season or ruin college football, selfishly as a Gamecock fan, you have to be thrilled with it, because all of a sudden, whether you're a fan of the Gamecocks, Missouri, Ole Miss, any of those teams I mentioned, it's going to give your team a chance to play for the ultimate prize, because a 10-win SEC team is getting in. Mark, I heard you saying earlier you think a 9-win SEC team, you think a 9-3 Missouri would get in next year. So just think about that and the possibilities and potential there. Certainly, to your point, Mark, that provides a great deal of hope for not just South Carolina, but a lot of those middle-of-the-pack SEC teams as well.
And by the way, guess who else is in that middle-of-the-pack SEC group of teams now? The Gators, right? Yeah, yeah. We're like, listen, I'm not speaking down to you. We're talking to one another eye to eye, same level right now, man. It's not a great feeling, honestly.
Chris,
I know it hurts you, Mark. I know
it does brutally, more than I'd ever put into words.
Chris, let's explore that word you used there, selfishly, here for a second. I'm going to be extremely unselfish, and I'm going to put a couple $1 million into Chris Phillips's bank account. What is the number one upgrade that, in your mind, Williams-Brice Stadium needs? And I want your selfish answer. What would you want fixed, not what the fan base would say?
Diesel, this one is so easy, and I'm so happy you asked, and you asked me to be selfish, because as a content creator, one of the biggest reasons I was so excited to stay back this year and create content from the studio and do post-game call-in shows was the lack of service or any sort of ability to post anything on social media when I would be inside Williams-Brice Stadium. Posting a 15-second clip took about 10 minutes, even if you could get it up. So selfishly, as a content creator, I'm putting Wi-Fi in the stadium, like a really, really good, strong signal Wi-Fi to where I could be on my phone and operate seamlessly while at the game. So it has nothing to do with concessions, no upgrades to bathrooms, no nothing. I would simply, the second thing though, Diesel, to your point, if it wasn't Wi-Fi, I would put those fold down, those chairs with backs on them. I would put those in the stadium. I would add more luxury seating to the stadium. I think that's the direction we're going anyways. And most of the games at Williams-Brice Stadium, you got some corners that are kind of empty. I know the Gamecocks pack it out. That's going to be really unpopular to some people about decreased capacity. But I think more chair back seating will be awesome. If you make it garnet to go with the stadium, we see other stadiums that looks really, really cool in. But Wi-Fi would be the clear-cut answer for me. Put Wi-Fi in the stadium as a content creator selfishly can operate in person. That's what I would go with.
What do you both think converting over to individual chairback seats, percentage-wise of capacity, that brings a stadium down by 15%, 10%?
It's close. It's happening at Florida, Chris, and they don't like it at all. Like they don't want more expensive seating for the wine and cheese crowd. I also think with more expensive seating, you lose the raucous atmosphere that gives you a true home field advantage, because your pricing, we all know, man, the gray tops that are, well, I shouldn't say that, I'm partly gray now, right? But the gray tops that are funding all of those high-end tickets, right? Those aren't the people creating the raucous environment at the game. So I don't know that I agree with you here, Chris. I mean, I'm all for making it even more intimidating of a place to play, not less.
I say this, Mark, because I get what you're saying with that. And, I don't know that you're necessarily, how much are we bumping up prices through the chairback stuff? And I know it's going to make it more competitive to get tickets for sure. But I feel like a lot of the capacity stuff, it's an ego thing, Mark. It's a stroking of the ego. We could fit 100,000 in our stadium versus if you fit an 85,000, but it was a more enjoyable experience to go to the game. I don't know, man. I can see both sides of it for sure. I can see both sides, and I'm not saying cover the entire stadium with that. Let me make that clear. Adding some of the chairback seating, more luxury seating, more luxury boxes. The stadium as a whole. I'm not saying replace all of the seats or take away what makes the stadium great and what the intimidation factor. And I've seen it in Gainesville, by the way, Mark. I know people aren't huge fans of it, but admittedly, man, I think that's the way we're going. And I mean, I don't know that the school can really, at least right now, get involved with NIL. But I mean, I think we're going to get to a point, Mark, where anything that can generate more revenue it's going to happen. So I think you're going to probably see this happen more and more and more across college football. So, again, I'm not saying cover Willie B in luxury seating, but adding some more to it, I think would be beneficial. That's all I'm saying.
Chris, when I arrived here to the upstate, to the Palmetto State in 2019, I would say Clemson as a program was a 10. And South Carolina as a program was a 3 or a 4. Win last year in the Palmetto rivalry. Very close in the recruiting rankings this year, right? Where would you say scale of 1 to 10? Okay, we're going to test your objectivity capability here, Chris. Scale of 1 to 10 as programs they are right now, Clemson and South Carolina.
Yeah, Mark, good question. I would say Clemson, despite the 8-4 season, and I guess some may say that Clemson's slipping as a program or downward trajectory, I would still put them at an 8. I still think they're viewed as one of the national brands, one of the national powers, you could argue, in college football. I'd put South Carolina right now at about a 5.5 or a 6. I mean, I think that, they've still got a ways to go in regards to proving they're going to be a consistent contender. I think you got that flash in the pan. I say flash in the pan, but you had that nice year 2 under Shane Beamer, but you follow it up with 5 and 7. And so I don't know that many folks, and especially too, Mark, this, South Carolina has over 100 years of mediocrity supporting the argument that they're going to be mediocre. So for the Gamecocks to get the benefit of the doubt and elevate their status as a program, they've got to do 3X or 4X what the normal program has to do, right? If Tennessee has one good year, they're back. Tennessee football's back. They're a power. They're an elite program, et cetera, because they've done it before. South Carolina has to string together 3 or 4 seasons before they start getting, quote unquote, national respect. And that's fair because they've never done it before at a high level, and it's just the reality. So I'd say South Carolina's probably a 5.5 right now. I mean, it's not a good sign, Mark, when we're going into year 4 and you're talking about potentially a coaching change, if you will, and what a coach has to do to keep his job. I don't think Clemson's nearly remote that. Again, I'd give them an 8. If they follow up this season with another 8-4 or worse, then I think that number obviously drops. I think it obviously hurts their brand as, a quote unquote power, if you will, or being viewed as one of the upper echelon programs. But for right now, I'd side with Clemson as an 8 and South Carolina at a 5.5.
There you go. Chris Phillips, always appreciate having you on, my friend, and wish you and yours a very, very Merry Christmas. Seems like it's a long time, but it's not that long. We will see you next year, my friend.
Mark and Diesel, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's to you and yours, guys. Enjoy the time off, and can't wait to follow up with you and do it again in 2024.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good, bud. Okay. Our friend, Chris Phillips, here on Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, the Fan Upstate. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Marc Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 o'clock p.m. today. Truly do appreciate you making us part of your day each and every day. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas, one and all. We love you. We appreciate you. We could not do this without you. Let's see here. Jam-packed in the final 2 hours of the show today. Let's see here. Diesel, you can't put all of us Gamecock fans in a pile. Not all of us wanted Birch back from Oregon. That would be like us saying all y'all radio hosts are the same. No, I don't understand that.
Yeah, but Texter, when we were talking about the situation with Jordan Birch last year, the exact same question came up. And I never said, every single one of you, I've polled 100% of Gamecock fans, and you all said, bleh. Like, you have to understand that when we say things like that, it's not meant to be taken 100% literally. But last year, when Jordan Birch left you, a lot of Gamecock fans said, oh, we'd absolutely take that guy back if we could.
100% the case. 100% the case. So, really, Mark, your playoff teams, no Oregon, Washington, USC, or Penn State. No Caleb Williams for USC. No Bo Nix for Oregon. No Michael Penix Jr. for Washington. Penn State is always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Although if I had to pick one, I would say that they are the closest one to the group. Would you guys not agree? I think they are the closest ones there. So all of that is to say that it is time for us to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
By the way, I should throw a flag on you for driving and texting just then.
Oh, yeah.
I should do it, but I won't.
Thank you, sir.
5.
All right, my friends. You are not going to believe something Booger McFarland, my former co-host, actually said on a broadcast. It was the App State Miami of Ohio game that Appalachian State won. It was halftime. It was a slog fest. Well, Booger has a solution when a call of nature happens in a slog fest. Here's what he said live on ABC.
One upside to this, as a defensive lineman, when you're soaking wet, and it's raining, and you got to go to the bathroom. I wasn't expecting that. So listen, you have to find some good in it. So normally we have to go back in the locker room, but since everything is wet, it's good to go. You just let it flow.
Instant heater, okay?
Well, I didn't go that far. Just let it flow.
Okay.
Hey, if it's money, Diesel, the same could go for number 2. No one would ever know. No one would ever know.
Gross.
Booger. TMI, my friend. TMI. Come on, buddy. Come on. One of my favorite Booger McFarland stories, Diesel, is one time he was talking about the annals of history, and instead he called it the annals of history. Okay? And I said, really, the annals of history. So I talked to our sound guys, and we put together this whole bit that Booger didn't see coming with like a drum. Tomorrow on Booger and Ryan, we go deep inside the annals of history where no man has ever gone before. It was a bit that we made.
If it was the Jim Rome show, he would be talking about buttholes through history.
I love it. I love it. All right, my friends. Next up.
4.
So what is your earliest projection on the teams that are going to be in next year's college football playoff? Here you go. How about Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Missouri, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Notre Dame? Then I will go Kansas State, Liberty, and Clemson. Boy, you realize what are you picking from with the Big 12 with no Oklahoma and Texas there? What are you really picking from? You saw Oklahoma State absolutely get boat raced by Texas, right? That might be your champion. I'm going Kansas State. I think Clemson is your ACC champion next year. 5 highest-ranked conference champions. How do you think the vibe is going to be, Diesel, if a conference champion is 10-3? Or what if there's a year where, like, Iowa wins the Big Ten championship game? Then Michigan would be an at-large.
Yeah.
Then somebody gets knocked out. You think that's going to be viewed okay?
Yeah, I mean, because you have to have some sort of objective way, a clearly defined objective path to make the college football playoff, and that's how they've done it. The 5 highest ranked conference champions. I think the likelihood or the frequency of a lesser team making it and winning the conference championship game and getting in that way are going to be relatively slim. You know, it will happen every now and again. You know, a shocker, Iowa will beat Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. It didn't happen this year, but sometime it's going to happen. Chaos will find a way. And I think we'll look at it and say, oh, that's fun. Look at that. You know, they made it in. Isn't that great? But then you'll say, well, the teams that deserve to get in, subjectively deserve to get in, will still have a path as well. I think it's the best of both worlds, creating both an objective and subjective way of getting in.
Fair enough. There's my 12. Who are yours? Next up.
3.
Guys, I find it impossible not to pull for Clemson, right? Like I like all the teams that we covered to fare well. But I just love what Dabo's doing in regards to the portal. South Gamecocks 9 portal commitments, Clemson 0. Why? You heard Don Munson say right here on the show, Clemson is not going to bid for players. There is a whoring out of players that is existing right now in college sports, going to the highest bidder. Juice Wells just did so yesterday. You know what I would say to Juice Wells if he was interested in my school? There's the door. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord splits you. That's actually not the door. The door's over there. That's what I would say.
If you run fast enough, you could probably jump out the window.
Yeah, there you go.
That's very hard glass, very thick glass.
I think they made that glass bulletproof just for our safety, Dave. So that's some of the stuff we say here on the air. But no, guys, seriously, I find it so endearing that Clemson is willing to forego getting better in the name of doing things the right way, in the name of doing things that are correct and right for the sports. You have to admire that, right? Don't you have to admire that? At the same token, right, that's what my heart says, my head says, in order to win a national championship in the transfer portal era. And remember, Clemson has only won national championships in the pre-transfer portal era. You can do so one of two ways. You can have a top 5 recruiting class, or, by the way, Clemson does not have a top 5 recruiting class, or you can have a top 10 or 15 recruiting class and heavily use the portal. Clemson has the 15th ranked recruiting class, no use of the portal. My head tells me that can't win it all in today's day and age. I think it's incredible that this is their stance, that they're taking a stance on what's best for college football, that they're going based on principle. I love it, and it makes me pull for them. It really does. But does your head tell you can win that way, or do you have to make the deal with the devil this year? Next up.
2.
Buffalo and Dallas yesterday in the NFL. Dallas, a big-time loser, as they seemingly are every time they have a truly big game on the road. You know, we had Dak Prescott saying, essentially, that, look, it's a big difference playing on the home and on the road. Well, guess where you're going to be playing in the postseason, Dak? You're going to be playing on the road. Okay, so, you might as well get used to it. Buffalo ran for 266 yards against an otherwise top Dallas defense. And the Cowboys, in a big moment, really fell flat on their faces yet again. For that reason, my friends, when you ask me who's in my Super Bowl bubble, I've got Kansas City, and I've got Baltimore, and I've got Philadelphia, and I've got San Francisco. And I have nobody else, because you got to prove to me that you can do it. And finally,
1.
Chip Kelly with some interesting ideas on how to fix what ails college football. Here's Chip.
What is the biggest issue that you might have right now, whether it be realignment, NIL, transfer portal, and what would your plan maybe be to try to solve it?
I think they're all a problem, and I think we need to have a conference commissioner. I think football should be separate from the other sports. Just the fact that our school is leaving to go to the Big Ten in football, Our softball team should be playing Arizona in softball. Our basketball team should be playing Arizona in basketball. But because football left, and they're saying, well, how do you do that? Well, Notre Dame's independent in football, and they're in a conference and everything else. I think we should all be independent in football. And you can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power 5, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of 5. And we separate it, and we play each other. You can have the West Coast teams, and then every year we play 7 games against the West Coast teams, and then we play the East. So we play Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, West Virginia. Then the next year you play against the South while you still play your 7 teams. You can play a 7-game schedule. You can play 4 against another conference, another division opponent. And you can always play against one Mountain West team every year so that we can still keep those rivalries going. Not that I've really thought about this. Not that I've allowed to spend the time on this. But I think if you went together collectively as a group and said there's 132 teams and we all share the same TV contract, so that the Mountain West doesn't have one and the Sun Belt doesn't have another and SEC has one and they have another, that we all go together, that's a lot of games, and there's a lot of people in the TV world that would go through it. You can sponsor each one. Instead of calling it Group of 5 and Power 5, you can call it Amazon, Nike, bid that out to things. You do a lot of different things. But I think if we still do the same thing and take all that money, and I would do this, and I think this needs to be done, that money now needs to be shared with the student athletes, and there needs to be revenue sharing, and the players should get paid, and you get rid of NLI, and the schools should be paying the players because the players are what the product is.
I think there's a lot of truth to what Chip Kelly's saying, and there's a lot of good there. What I like about it, okay, is that it brings everyone under the same umbrella. You got players revenue sharing now. You have less of this going to the highest bidder. Why it can't happen is because there's no college football commissioner. Everybody's out for their own. You can't get everyone to agree to come together on this same thing. Diesel, I imagine you don't like it because it puts the wedge in between the Power 5 and the Group of 5. What else?
That's one thing. Number 2, I have a problem with his math because 64 times 2 is not 132. So, Chip, you messed that one up as well. Anything that puts a firm wedge in between the 2 divisions is a problem. Anything that presumptively pulls every team that's currently a Power 5 into that 64, and every team that is not a Power 5 outside of that 64 is inherently wrong. There are teams that are performing at the elite high level of Group of 5 who should be Power 5 teams, and there are Power 5 programs who are competing at the bottom basement level of the Power 5 who shouldn't be competing in the Power 5 level. Now, if you want to establish a promotion relegation system there, that's fine. It would be a way of providing some sort of mobility between those 2 divisions. I'm fine with that. But you know, he didn't really address those issues and those parts of that I think definitely need to be looked at. And then how are you dividing that money up? Are you creating a platform where if you have one national television revenue system, is every school, is Akron going to be making the same amount as Alabama? I doubt it. So the system will be put in place to keep the smaller schools down and to prop the larger schools up with tremendous financial resources. I highly doubt they're going to distribute it equally. So there's some big problems that I have with what Chip Kelly had to say there. It sounds nice and neat on paper. Oh, and of course, it's going to remove rivalries. It's going to, if a team falls outside of your line on a map, who your fan base has a rivalry with, all of a sudden, not playing them anymore. Sorry, guys. That's going to go bye-bye.
And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The CarPro.com text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube at The Fan Upstate on every one. Please like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Marc Ryan, that is MARC Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next, you'll hear from Josh Pate and his national championship pick. You'll be surprised at his answer here on Offsides, the Fan Upstate.
Hey, thank you guys for being here again today. We kept mostly double-digit viewers in the stream the entire show. And that is a fantastic thing. So thank you guys so much. And remember, we are pushing for our goal of 100,000 downloads this year. And guys, we are within 1,000. We are within 1,000. And you can help us get there. See, Mark, this is the part you left out on the air. You have to tell them where they can go to help, okay? You can go to our Spotify. You can go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, the Odyssey app, any of them. Search Offsides with Marc Ryan, hit subscribe, and just play a couple of pieces of audio. That's what it takes. Just do what you're already doing, listening to the show, hit play on a couple of pieces of audio, and you can help us reach that 100,000 and blow past it. Because I have no doubt that now with over 15 days left, about 15 days left this year, we can blow past that number. So JD, Silver Fox, CD, Dan B, Madcraft, all of you. Silver Fox, you're new here, man. You waited until the very tail end of the show to jump in. Jump back in with us tomorrow. We'll be on the air streaming at 3 o'clock. Thanks for watching today, guys.